I wore a 120-year-old dress to my wedding day. Hi, I'm Tally. I normally make historically inspired clothes on this channel, but I thought today we'd take some time to talk about my antique Edwardian wedding dress. So when Jack and I got engaged in 2020, it was immediately clear that we wanted an Edwardian themed wedding. We booked this amazing castle in the Scottish countryside that was surrounded by hills, and our wedding date was set for early November, so you'd still have some of the autumnal colors, but you're also surrounded by the moodiness of upcoming winter. Jack was planning to wear a morning coat with a top hat, and we booked in with Bernadeta Kupiec for the pictures. She is one of the most talented photographers in Scotland. We had To a Mountain Daisy do our flowers, and everything was becoming real. But I still needed to find a dress. So at the time I was wearing a lot of Edwardian clothes in day to day, but more kind of reproductions rather than antiques. And I know that a lot of people have some very strong opinions about whether you should be allowed to wear antiques or not. I personally think you have to wear antiques with care, because there's no point in having antiques just rot in your wardrobe, never to be worn again. But also when I first got into historical dress up, I was a little bit careless with what I wore. So a lot of antiques will break easily, so I think if you just wear them with a lot of care for special occasions and you really think about what you're doing, it's fine to wear antiques. Just maybe don't wear them carelessly, but then you shouldn't do that to any clothes. So for my wedding day, I wanted a genuine antique Edwardian dress. But the problem is there are a lot of day dresses, so the kind of muslin dresses, the lingerie dresses that are quite easily available. But those dresses have the summery vibe that I didn't actually want to go for. I wanted something that felt like an evening gown while being white and working as a wedding dress. The first thing I did was just check all local antique shops, seeing whether there's any antique dresses that would fit my criteria. Unfortunately, a lot of the times antique dresses are very small, and even though I wear a corset, I still wouldn't have fit into a 22-inch waist. So most of the dresses I found were quite small and also not necessarily wedding appropriate. So then I went online and started looking through eBay and Etsy trying to find the perfect dress, and there were a lot of options, but I just really struggled to narrow down which one I wanted to go with, because obviously you can't try them on. You just buy them and they get shipped, and then you either like them or not. So I was really worried about making that choice. But then a dress came online, and the moment I saw it, I knew this is the dress. It was just a thin layer of net that had flower appliques on it, and it was absolutely stunning. When we were planning the wedding, I told my photographer that I wanted it to feel a little bit like that moment in Anastasia when she walks into the ballroom and suddenly everything comes back to life and people are dancing again, and it's almost like a ghost wedding. So that's the feeling I wanted to have for my wedding day. So this dress felt haunted and beautiful, and it was exactly what I wanted. But again, it was online somewhere and I had no chance of trying it on, and it was also forbidding, and I was just like, how expensive is this going to get? So now I know that most people spend a lot of money on their wedding dresses. So in the grand scale of wedding dresses, I got a bargain here. I paid around £500 for the dress, which is the most money I've ever spent on any single item. But then again, it's for my wedding day, so I was just like, it's fine. And I won the bid and it got shipped to me, and I was so excited. So when it arrived, there were some flaws with it. Don't be tricked into thinking antique things will arrive and they're going to be wearable. The entire neckline used to have some form of elastic in it, but it had degraded over the years, so the neckline was just kind of drooping. And back then I was not a seamstress yet, so I had no skills in tailoring, and told myself I would bring it to an alterations tailor. But when it arrived, it was so fragile and precious that I was just like, I'm not going to bring this to an alterations tailor, even though I'm sure they know what they're doing, but I'm not sure they know how to handle antiques. So obviously I did the whole cleaning routine, soaked it in very soft detergent, then very carefully opened up all the flowers to dry flat because the flowers were kind of curled in. And then I went in and tried to stitch up any of the rips that had occurred over the past 120 years. The fun thing about the dress is that it is not actually a dress, it's a blouse and a skirt. And the blouse itself has a little bit that is tucked into the skirt, but it's very rudimentary. So you can see there was no effort put into this bit at all. It's just a little bit of fabric, not even finished up at the edges, just to be tucked in. And it's just such a fun little detail. So I'm actually thinking this was probably handmade by someone who is not necessarily a professional seamstress. And I would absolutely love to know the story of this dress. But because it is see-through, I then ended up having to buy a lot of undergarments, which is crucial for any historical look. I already had my basic petticoats and my corset, but for this dress I needed a special petticoat because it had a train. There are a lot of layers involved in this. So obviously you've got your chemise, then you wear your corset over that, you've got your stockings, got a corset cover, then multiple petticoats, and then I had a dickie, which is something kind of like this that doesn't actually have any sleeves, just a high neck that goes underneath the bodice, and then the actual dress goes on top. So in addition to the dress, I also had to get all of these undergarments that I didn't have yet. And I should say I'm planning to try on the dress later, which is the first time I've tried it on since my wedding day, and I'm very excited, but also I have sold some of the undergarments because I didn't really have any use for a petticoat with a train, so I'll just wear it with my normal undergarments that I have here. So it's not going to be as perfect, but I'm still very excited to see how it looks now, because I feel like for the wedding day it was absolutely magical. And hear me out, those pictures that Bernadeta took look so stunning and so moody, and she captured an atmosphere that I don't actually think was there. So the pictures are just absolutely perfect. And I had this beautiful massive bouquet that had like waterfall flowers coming out and drooping over from to a mountain daisy. But because the bouquet was so big and so much was going on, I sometimes feel like my dress wasn't in the focus enough. And it is such a stunning dress. I always felt like I wanted more footage of it. I wanted to put it more in the focus. And back in the days, I wasn't really into YouTube yet, and Instagram Reels were just becoming a thing, so I don't actually have any video footage of the wedding at all. So I just always wanted to do a little video to just appreciate this dress and talk about the process of how I found it, just because obviously in this economy, buying a wedding dress is quite expensive, so buying an antique is always an option. There is actually an antique wedding dress shop in Edinburgh, and they have antiques from Edwardian to like the 70s. So we went there as well and tried some things on, and they had a dress I really liked from the 50s, but obviously we were going for an Edwardian theme, so it didn't really work for me. So with all of that out of the way, let's put on the dress and all of the undergarments, and I'll talk you through each of the steps and show you what the final result looks like. So the first step with any historical look is always putting the shoes on first, because once you've got the corset on, that's gonna be a pain. These are my wedding boots that I had custom made from Joe Bear Boots, and they're absolutely stunning. They're a mix of soft light leather here and a suede up here. I wore them for the wedding and for multiple other occasions, but they're just so precious that I don't really want to ruin them because they're light colored, and in Scotland that's just not that easy to wear. So they usually live on a shelf, but I'll try them on now and I'll show you how pretty they are. The shoes are on and I've shed all of my modern clothes, so now I'm just in my chemise and in my stockings. And what comes next is the corset. If you're interested in hearing more about corsets, I have a video completely dedicated to corsets on my channel as well. So you start out with a fully open corset at the back, clip it around you, and then you evenly tighten the laces at the back. And when the corset is laced, it is time for some petticoats. The first one I'll put on is a petticoat I made myself. It has some lace applications and some green trim at the bottom. So this is gonna go at the bottom because I don't actually want to see this through the wedding dress. Because the outer fabric of the wedding dress is so very thin, I wore multiple petticoats on the day just to make sure it gave me the right silhouette. Now this one will go on top. It has some lace applications and some pin tags, but it doesn't have any color to it or anything that's too obvious. So this one will be a bit more of a blank canvas underneath the dress. So now, because the top here is still very corsety and undergarments, I'm going to put a corset cover on top of this. But I should mention this one is actually very much off-white greenish. So it's not the one I wore for the wedding, and it might not be the perfect color for this, but seem to have misplaced all of my corset covers when I moved. So it is what we've got. And I bet you thought we were done here, but there is still another layer that I'm going to put on top of the corset cover, which is the dickie. So the high neck that I want to peek out from under the wedding dress. So there are some buttons at the back of this, but I can't possibly reach them. So on my wedding day, I actually had my bridesmaids close it because it was just too fiddly for me to do. But that is all of the undergarments now on me, which means we can finally take a look at the wedding dress. As you can tell, it is honestly just a whisper of a dress. It is so see-through, and it's got all of these little flower details and some black embroidery as well, which I was originally a little bit worried about that it might be too black, but I felt like it was just perfect. And it's got these cascades of flowers growing up and down, and it's just so beautiful. For my wedding day, as I mentioned before, I made sure that all of these flowers were all opened up. So this is what they should be looking like. And this is what they more realistically look like. But I'm also not going to steam it or anything because I'm a bit worried about doing anything to it. It also has a little bit of staining from the day because we took pictures in the woods. But I've just added my part of the story to this dress. And as I mentioned for the bodice, the bottom bit is completely unfinished, no hem. And when I bought it, they actually had it on the picture the wrong way around, where they had this bit to the front and the buttons to the back, but from the way the kind of pigeon breast fell, it made more sense to be the other way around. So I just, from my own historical knowledge, decided that whoever sold it was wrong, and the button front is the front of it. I'm still amazed at how beautiful this is. There's also these beautiful lace details on the sleeves, and the neckline has these little ruffles. Let's put it on. And there are like the tiniest littlest hooks here. So you kind of have to just like weave them into the net fabric to close it very, very delicately. And then the bigger ones, like this one down here, there is a little loop for it where it's meant to go. Okay, skirt next. But the one thing that is still missing is a waistband. I didn't wear a green one to my wedding day, but this is the one that I found. And I think it's gonna look really pretty with this anyways, because as you know, we like green here. Okay, hear me out. I am screaming, but also we are not quite done yet because we are brides, so we're missing our veil. So I did actually have two different veils for the day. I had a Victorian reproduction veil, which I wore for the ceremony, so it had the little bit that went over the face, and it was absolutely stunning, and it has a little bit of embroidery all around the edge. Let me show you a little close-up. So like this all around it. But then I also had a second veil, which I actually wore for the first time for the legal wedding. So we had a legal wedding ceremony in the Glasgow Council House and then the actual castle wedding afterwards. So this one was more of a casual one, but it's an actual antique veil. So this is what I wore for the rest of the day after the ceremony. So let's try on the ceremony veil first. Like, I know I already got married in this. I've already seen myself in this. This makes me a little bit emotional here. I look so pretty. Oh, I love it. I love it so much. I still love it so much. I did everything right in choosing this dress. I feel like a ghosty bride. I feel so pretty. This is actually so silly. I don't know why I'm crying. I love this dress so very much. So you know you've chosen the right wedding dress when you cry like 4 years after getting married because you still love the dress so much. Let's put on the other veil just so you can see everything. So this one doesn't quite have me crying. It is cute as well, and I obviously mainly just wore it because of convenience, because I didn't want someone to step onto my veil during the rest of the day. I feel like it suited my other wedding dress that I wore for the legal ceremony more, because that was actually just a lingerie dress, so it wasn't like a proper ball gown type dress, so it was all a little bit more casual. Let's put the other veil back on and cherish this moment for a little bit longer, because I'm just... So enough crying from me. I'm going to flip around the camera because my angle isn't wide enough to show the entire dress like this, and I'll show you a full head to toe of what the dress and the veil and everything looks like. A very little question at the end of the video. So I know that if I finish my PhD, which hopefully by this point I will, when I graduate, I will need to wear a dress that's either black or white to my ceremony. And I've jokingly been saying I should wear my wedding dress. And Jack's like, you cannot wear your wedding dress to your graduation. But like, how would they know? How would they know this is my wedding dress? Let's talk about this in the comments. Do you think if I showed up in this for my graduation and then obviously have like the little cap and gown and everything over it, not the veil, does it scream? I mean, maybe, yeah. Let me know what you think, because I want to wear this dress again. And if I finish my PhD, if I might be able to wear this under the cape for my graduation. And I would love to wear this again, because realistically, when am I going to wear this again? I'd have to divorce Jack to wear it again. Maybe this way I can sneak in another occasion to wear this. I really greatly enjoyed this. I would love to hear what you thought about this, because obviously normally I do more sewing and renovations. So I don't normally talk about my antiques, but I do actually have an entire wardrobe of antiques here. And I do have another wedding dress, which I wore for the legal ceremony, which isn't quite as grand as this one. But if you were interested to hear about it, let me know, because I have a lot more stories to tell about my dresses. But next week we're going to be back with some sewing again. Not Edwardian, more 1950s, but another project I'm really excited about. So I hope you're going to be here for the next video. And if you like this, you could also consider following my channel, but also I'm not good at telling you guys what to do. But basically, I am very grateful that you're all here and that you gave me an opportunity to wear my wedding dress again. And I look forward to seeing you all in my next video. So bye bye.